The backlash around the world this Friday night over Israel's plan to take over Gaza City.
This is wrong. We reiterate our call for an immediate ceasefire.
What it would mean for 1 million Palestinians and the fears for the hostages. More money for Canada's military members, their pay raise, and the potential boost in benefits and bonuses. Plus, a Canadian tennis champion with nerves of steel.
She has amazing qualities physically and also mentally.
How Victoria Mboko's rise to the top has been decades in the making.
Global National, reporting tonight, Ann Gaviola.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Israel is once again preparing for a major ground offensive in Gaza, this time to capture Gaza City, despite warnings from its own military and growing international condemnation. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushed the plan through after a heated 10-hour session of Israel's security cabinet. He insists it will defeat Hamas and that Gaza will later be handed to Arab forces. The decision triggered a rare weekend meeting of the UN Security Council and fierce protests from hostage families. More on that in a moment. But we begin tonight with Redmond Shannon on a move many fear could deepen the crisis.
Israeli tanks waiting near the Gaza border, ready for a military operation that is hugely contentious within and outside the Middle East.
This escalation by the Israeli government is going in total contradiction to the will of the international community, international law, and common sense.
Following a 10-hour meeting of Israel's security cabinet, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said they had agreed to take control of Gaza City, but not the entire strip as he had wanted. The plan involves moving around 1 million people south to the remaining areas of Gaza, not under Israeli control or evacuation orders. In the meeting, the head of Israel's defense forces, Eyal Zamir, reportedly raised concerns for the safety of the remaining hostages, Gazan civilians, and his fatigued troops. It is not known when the operation will begin. Even Israel's biggest backer, the US, has reservations.
There's a lot of common objectives here. There is some, I think, disagreement about how exactly to accomplish those common objectives.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has suspended any arms exports to Israel that could be used in Gaza, the strongest pushback of the war yet from Israel's most important European ally. In a social media post, Netanyahu's office pointedly said Germany is rewarding Hamas for the most horrific attack against the Jewish people since the Holocaust. Netanyahu says he wants to establish, quote, Israeli security control over Gaza. But on Thursday, he told Fox News he does not want to govern the Strip. Some of his far-right cabinet members wish to re-establish Jewish settlements there.
We want to hand it over to Arab forces that will govern it properly.
Arab forces would likely need to include countries like Jordan and Egypt. Both nations have denounced Israel's plan. Anne?
Redmond Shannon in London. Thank you. Hostage families in Israel and Palestinians in Gaza are both condemning plans to seize Gaza City, with some describing the decision as a death sentence for those in the enclave. Vincent McAviney has reaction from the front lines.
Protests by Israelis in Jerusalem Thursday night after their Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to take full control of Gaza. Police resorting to water cannons to disperse the crowds. Friday night, a more direct appeal, ahead of the weekly Shabbat dinner, when Jewish families traditionally gather at the beginning of the Sabbath. Hostage families set up an empty table in front of Defense Minister Israel Katz's home.
Expanding the war would risk so many more hostages that they mustn't do it. My cousin was murdered in Rafah because they decided to expand the war into Rafah. She was there, she was alive, and she was murdered by her captors because the IDF was approaching.
We know from hostages who's been there that Hamas terrorists are pointing guns against the head of our loved ones, and they're telling them that once they feel a pressure, once they feel that the army is just coming close, they're just going to shoot them. So obviously we're terrified.
In Gaza, Palestinians, again under evacuation orders, were bewildered by the plans. I want to understand, where is your goal? So you do a ground invasion, where? There is nothing left that you did not wipe out in the country. There is nothing left and there is no food as well. Our whole lives we will be in tents until when? What does the army want us to do? Just leave us where we are. Where should we go? The south is not safe. Gaza City is not safe. The north is not safe. Where should we go? Do we throw ourselves in the sea? Where should we go? Find a solution for us. Prime Minister Netanyahu's plans for the future of Gaza's people and its governance may still be unclear, but they certainly push further away any prospect of a viable two-state solution. Vincent McAviney, Global News, London.
Prime Minister Mark Carney joined other world leaders criticizing Israel's plan today, saying the decision is wrong and won't help the situation on the ground.
This action is not going to contribute to an improvement in the humanitarian situation on the ground. It is going to put the lives of the hostages at greater risk rather than lessening it.
Today, the Prime Minister also announced pay increases for Canada's military members. It's part of a plan to boost recruitment and retain members. But as Mackenzie Gray reports, the $2 billion compensation package will also help Canada meet its NATO defense spending target.
Staying ready in an increasingly dangerous world, leading Mark Carney to outline major new military incentives.
Your pay should reflect the weight of your responsibilities.
That pay increasing by 8 to 20%, depending on the Canadian Armed Forces member's rank. Pensions jumping by up to $6,000 annually. And new members who sign up in positions with acute staffing shortages can get a potential $50,000 bonus.
Despite the name, cash is not getting salary.
That raise for only human military members, the largest since 1999, a bid to fill a shortfall of 14,000 personnel.
Today's announcement will help in some ways, but we have a lot of work to do in other areas to again do better at retention.
The total cost, $2 billion annually, a part of getting Canada to NATO's annual defense spending target by this year. Not meeting that goal had been a long-time Donald Trump gripe.
They don't pay very much for military, and the reason they don't pay much is they assume that we're going to protect them. That's not an assumption they can make.
Canada has addressed multiple Trump irritants, but that hasn't stopped additional tariffs. Carney, who promised an elbows-up approach to the president, still hasn't retaliated.
These increases will
now pointing to the upcoming renegotiation of the Canada-US-Mexico free trade deal as a reason why.
We're very conscious that there are a couple of negotiations in sequence, and the extent to which those negotiations can be brought together or inform each other, that's in the interest of all parties.
One potential point of interest, Canada's F-35 fighter jet contract with Maryland-based Lockheed Martin, worth $74 billion. Reuters news outlet has reported Canadian defense officials have recommended the deal proceed, but Carney says a decision has yet to be made.
The review is not completed, so there's no settled advice into the government.
A resolution to the issues with the Americans is unlikely to be imminent, Anne, with the Prime Minister set to be on vacation all of next week.
Mackenzie Gray at CFB Trenton in Ontario. Thanks. Canada's job market took a hit in July, shedding nearly 41,000 positions, mostly full-time and private sector roles. Statistics Canada says youth aged 15 to 24 were hit hardest in a sluggish summer market, with job drops led by recreation and construction. The losses pushed youth unemployment to its highest rate since 2010. The new numbers come after a surprise job surge in June, though, keeping Canada's unemployment rate unchanged at 6.9%. Air Canada and the union representing 10,000 of its flight attendants were back at the bargaining table today. The union is planning demonstrations in Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, and Calgary on Monday. It's not a strike, and it's not expected to cause disruptions, but is designed to send a message to Air Canada with both sides at an impasse. Members could walk off the job a week from now after a strike mandate vote received more than 99% support earlier this week. The airline says it is not yet considering flight cancellations as it remains focused on reaching a deal. Provincial governments on the East Coast are cracking down on open fires and other activities in an effort to prevent more wildfires. Newfoundland and Labrador just hiked fines for violating a province-wide burn ban, and Nova Scotia is banning residents from hiking and camping. Heidi Petracek explains the measures and why some are calling it government overreach.
We mean business.
Newfoundland and Labrador's premier warns ignoring the provincial burn ban will cost violators dearly.
Effective today, new fines will range from $50,000 to $150,000.
The province is battling 3 out-of-control wildfires. The biggest in Conception Bay North is approaching 3,000 hectares in size. Its smoke, a thick blanket seen from the air, flames that have forced hundreds of residents from their homes. And yet 28 additional smaller fires were reported this week.
Despite the serious nature of what's happening, we are continuing to see reports of people setting fires.
Hot and dry conditions have turned Atlantic Canada into a tinderbox. All 4 provinces have banned open fires. New Brunswick, fighting its own fires, is now restricting some forestry operations. Nova Scotia has gone even further. Memories of 2023's devastation still fresh.
We're telling Nova Scotians, stay out of the woods.
So there's no more hiking, camping, or using vehicles like ATVs in wooded areas. Anyone who breaks the rules could face a $25,000 fine.
It's unfortunate, but, it would go up so quickly, and none of us want that.
There is pushback.
There's no risk associated with walking your dog in the woods.
A national group known for challenging COVID-19 measures calls the move severe overreach and has launched a petition calling on the government to back off.
When you describe everything as a safety issue, it means everything can be controlled.
Those on the front lines of wildfires have a different view.
A few nights ago, I got a call from one of our members. His crew had to cut their hoses with axes and get out as fast as they could. This isn't about taking away people's rights. This is about keeping firefighters from dying.
More than enough good reason, he says, for taking a walk somewhere other than the woods. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
First Nations chiefs in northern Manitoba are calling on Ottawa and the provincial government to invest in preventative wildfire measures. Thousands of people in several communities have been forced from their homes this summer in a record-setting fire season. Global's Marney Blunt is following the story. Marney?
And abandoned in the midst of a crisis. That's how some Indigenous leaders from northern Manitoba communities feel during a record-breaking wildfire season, calling on the provincial and federal governments to take immediate action and accountability in addressing what they call failed emergency response systems.
We are not burning because of fate. We are burning because budgets refuse to bend.
The northern Manitoba and Sinanoo First Nations that make up the Island Lake area, including Red Sucker Lake, Wasagamak, Garden Hill, and St. Teresa Point, have been under mass evacuations this summer due to wildfires raging nearby, with more than 6,000 residents forced to flee. Indigenous leaders are calling for a proactive rather than reactive response, noting Ottawa allocates over 70% of wildfire funding to response and just over 20% to preventative measures. They're calling on both levels of government to fund Indigenous-led firefighting teams, fire breaks in all-season road, a permanent fire response and evacuation strategy, and incorporate Sinanoo knowledge into decision-making.
I feel like we're just children in a fire, waiting for the province to come and save us, but they're busy right now. Going forward, we need to have our own emergency management strategy as First Nations.
Global News reached out to both Indigenous Services Canada and Manitoba's Natural Resources Minister, but did not receive a formal response by deadline. Anne?
Marney Blunt in Winnipeg. Thank you. Pressure from President Trump for Russia to make peace. Coming up, why many Ukrainians are pessimistic about a possible pact that the U.S. and Russia draw up. As Russia's war on Ukraine rages on, U.S. President Donald Trump is hoping for fruitful discussions with Russian President Vladimir Putin as the two leaders prepare for a face-to-face meeting next Friday in Alaska. Trump has threatened to slap more sanctions on Russia if it doesn't agree to a peace deal. But as Candace Cole reports, Ukrainians also aren't encouraged by the American-led ceasefire efforts.
As the clock runs out on the deadline set by President Donald Trump for President Putin to agree to a ceasefire with Ukraine, the two are expected to meet next week to discuss options for bringing about peace in the region.
Well, I think this meeting does have significance, but I do think there are a lot of reasons not to get terribly excited about this right now. And I think there are some reasons to be quite concerned about it as well.
The agenda for that meeting, according to Bloomberg, is to reach a deal that would secure Russian-occupied territory seized in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region and Crimea. All this without Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, present.
There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both.
But Zelensky has repeatedly asserted that Ukraine does not recognize Russia's occupation of Ukraine, and ceding land to Russia following its military invasion would be unconstitutional. Still, in a social media post Friday, Zelensky urged allies to support, quote, constructive steps by the U.S. to reach lasting peace. Ukrainians are understandably skeptical. This 19-year-old lost his father, a Ukrainian soldier, in the fighting. He says any ceasefire will be temporary, likening it to the failed Minsk agreements a decade ago. And this man who lost his brother says Russia has a history of fighting with everyone, and Trump has his own interests. Trump has threatened secondary sanctions against countries that continue to purchase Russian oil if Putin fails to meet Friday's ceasefire deadline. Already, he's doubled tariffs on India to 50% for failure to comply. India responded by halting a multi-billion-dollar deal to buy Boeing aircrafts. Anne?
Thanks, Candace. Now, there are reports U.S. President Trump has secretly ordered the Pentagon to begin using military force against foreign drug cartels. According to the New York Times, U.S. military officials are already drawing up plans to target Latin American drug groups. The move will likely raise multiple legal issues around military jurisdiction. Yesterday, the Trump administration doubled the bounty on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to $50 million.
He is one of the largest narco traffickers in the world and a threat to our national security. Under President Trump's leadership, Maduro will not escape justice, and he will be held accountable for his despicable crimes.
Maduro also faces international condemnation over his authoritarian government's human rights abuses and strong evidence of electoral fraud to keep himself in power. Ahead, water slide scare, the terrifying moment for passengers on a cruise ship.
No more slides!
Passengers on the world's largest cruise ship cried out in horror after a water slide cracked open. It happened yesterday on Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas. Passengers screamed to stop the slide as water cascaded from the acrylic glass panel. One passenger was injured. In California, a wildfire that erupted north of Los Angeles is forcing thousands of people from their homes. The canyon fire is spreading quickly. More than 4,000 people are under evacuation orders, more than 12,000 more on an alert. Firefighters are battling extreme heat, low humidity, and rugged terrain. Astronaut Jim Lovell, the commander of Apollo 13, has died at the age of 97. Lovell led the near-tragic mission to the moon in 1970. His calm leadership played a crucial role in helping the crew survive after an oxygen tank exploded. Lovell was one of NASA's most traveled astronauts in the agency's first decade. Canada's rising star next. How Victoria Mboko took the tennis world by storm. Canadian Victoria Mboko is in the tennis world spotlight after her thrilling championship win against tennis titan Naomi Osaka at the National Bank Open in Montreal last night. At just 18 years old, Mboko dominated some of the sport's biggest stars during the tournament. Eric Sorensen on her underdog story.
One moment in the finals showed what makes Victoria Mboko's tennis special. A drop shot she had no business retrieving. The headfirst dive left Naomi Osaka stunned.
I wanted it so badly that I think falling was a little bit worth it. So I wanted to run and achieve everything that even didn't seem possible.
What didn't seem possible became reality. A teenager with talent and willpower that even her coaches marvel at.
She has amazing qualities physically and also mentally, and she has all the skills in the world to become an amazing tennis player, what she already is.
Pierre Lamarche saw it coming long ago when he trained Mboko's older sister, and Vicky, about age 5, expected to play too.
Vicky would run out on the court and take her position on the baseline and expect for me to provide her with some balls so she could hit them.
For decades, Canada produced few top singles players. Then Jeannie Bouchard and Milos Raonic both went to the Wimbledon finals. Bianca Andreescu won the Canadian and U.S. Open titles. Denis Shapovalov and Felix Auger-Aliassime broke into the world's top 10. And Canadian teams won both the Davis Cup and the Billie Jean King Cup, a sign of the depth in Canadian tennis.
We just seem to have a great breakout star every couple of years, so it's a pretty good pattern that Canada has going on.
Right now, 3 Canadian men are in the top 35 in the world, and that includes another rising star, 23-year-old Gabrielle Diallo. On the women's side, Vicky Mboko has jumped from 333rd to 24th just this year. She's now ahead of Leylah Fernandez as the top-ranked Canadian on the women's tour.
I would have never thought something like this would have came so suddenly.
Now, Mboko will be tested in new ways with fame and expectations.
And she's sending a message that she can face these top players and not feel scared by the moment. So the sky is the limit for Victoria Mboko.
Is she that good? We'll find out soon. The U.S. Open starts in 2 weeks, and Victoria Mboko will not catch anyone by surprise anymore. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
That is Global National for this Friday night. I'm Ann Gaviola. Tonight's Your Canada showcases a patriotic gate in Bragg Creek, Alberta, a garden in Freeland, Prince Edward Island, and a logging truck in Port Alice, British Columbia. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll join us again tomorrow night. Have a great night.